Hey guys, if you want to get into video editing, but you don't really know how to get started, or maybe you just want to watch another introduction video, this one is for you. So in this video, we are going to use a song from Artlist. We're going to use a few clips that I recorded in Bali earlier this year, and we are going to use DaVinci Resolve to edit this video. It's going to be brief, it's going to be short. I'm just going to give you the basics. But the cool thing about this is that DaVinci Resolve you can actually use for free. So I'm still on the free version myself. I've been using Premiere Pro earlier on, but if you want to get into video editing, you can do that for free with DaVinci, the free version. It's more than capable of doing whatever you want to do. And you can just record with your iPhone or your phone, whatever you want you have, and get started by that. So this is obviously recorded with my camera, the clips that we're going to use, and I'm going to use Artlist, so those things cost a bit, but it's just to tell you that you can definitely get started almost for free and with what you have already. So let's jump onto the computer and jump into DaVinci Resolve. All right, so we are in DaVinci Resolve now, and I have the 18th version here. And it's the free version, as I just told you. And the first thing we're going to look at here is that we have some databases over here. And these are basically just folders for your project. So you can see the local database, that's the one that you're going to start with. That's the one that you're going to see if you just installed DaVinci for the first time. As you can see, I started out by using this myself. These reels are what I edit for Instagram. So you can see up until the 20th one that I did, I was just in this database until I realized that I could use different folders. So now I have this one for reels. And the cool thing about these folders are that you can have specific settings set up so that for each of them, this will start with my Reels settings and this will start with my YouTube settings. So that was just a quick note. To start with, we can just use the local database. That's more than fine. And we'll just hit new project, and I'm gonna call this one for getting started with editing. All right, and we're gonna create it. And this is where we start inside of DaVinci Resolve. And it might look a little bit intimidating if you haven't used an editing software before, but don't worry, I'm just gonna show you the basics and what you need to know, and you can easily get started after this right away. So the first thing that I always do when I get into a new project is head down to the settings menu down here in the right corner. And the reason for that is that if you do it later, you might have already started on a timeline, which is where you edit, and then you can't edit some of these settings. So it's important to start by doing this. And these are actually already set as default to what I use for most of my editing, which is Reels. So this one is set for 1080 by 1920, which is that horizontal reel view that you have. Some edit in a little bit of a different resolution, but that's the one that I use. So you can just edit these. You'd probably be set to something like this from the beginning, but then you can just edit it and say 1080 by 1920. That's going to be fine. That's going to be what we need for this one. You can set it to whatever you want. The only thing is that with this free version, you are limited to 4K resolution. So you can do a Ultra HD, which is 4K, and that is very nice for YouTube and stuff like that, but you can't do 4K vertically like we're doing here. So this is just 1080, which is more than fine for Reels or whatever you want to do for social media. But the timeline frame rate is the frame rate, the frames per second. And I always record in 29.97. You can switch this to whatever you want, but just make sure that the footage that you have, or at least the primary part of your footage that you have, the lowest that you have should be your timeline. If I had one clip that was 25 frames, I can probably get around with that with some tips and tricks, but to make it easiest for yourself, make sure that you use the lowest frame rate that you have. So for me, that's 29.97. And for the rest of it, I don't really change anything up. I'm just gonna leave it at this and click save. So that's it for our initial settings. We got a name of our project. We got into the settings. We have the reel that we want. This still doesn't look like the aspect ratio that we want, but don't worry, we'll get there in a second. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is that in DaVinci Resolve, we have these different tabs down here, which are the ones that you use to edit and kind of works in the workflow. So this one will be the media storage, the media tab, which is basically to find your footage and import it. This one, the second one, is for cutting. So it's for cutting your clips up to the length that you want the clips to be. This one is to edit your video as you want it to be. This one is the Fusion tab for anything visual effects. This one is the color grading tab where you will color your clips and adjust how they look. This one is the Fairlight, this is for audio, and this one is for exporting your project in the end. Now this might seem like a lot, so let's just keep it to the Edit tab, the color grading tab, and the exporting tab, which is the three ones that I basically use all the time. Once in a while I go into Fusion, once in a while I go into Fairlight, but for the most part I'll do everything in the Edit tab, the color tab, and the Deliver tab, which is for exporting. So let's just get into the video now. Let's hit Media Pool up here. You can toggle these on and off. So this, I can't remember how it looks when you just get into it, but everything that you see on my screen you can toggle, and it's very easy inside of DaVinci. So I'll click on the Media Pool because we want to import some clips, and yes, you can do that in the Media tab or in the Cut tab as well. We'll just keep it to the Edit tab. And for this one, first of all, we want some music. So let's just find our song, and I already found one inside of Artlist. So the first thing that I want to do every time that I make a reel is that I want to make sure that I have the music set first, because you usually edit throughout the beat of the song. So it's easier to get down the song first. Some people tend to get the clips in first. It really depends on what kind of project you're making. You might also want to cut up your clips and bunch them together in the sense that you want them before you start doing it. But for reels, for me, is mostly what I do is go with the music first, and then I'll put in the clips later. But when I'm going to make more like films, short films, I'll probably go the other way around and cut in the different clips in the sequences that I want, and then get on to the music afterwards. But you can do it either way around. It doesn't really matter how I show it here. So just like do it opposite if you want that. So we'll just go to the music first, and we get this tab here, and we get the audio track. If you have a clip that has some video on it and you want to just have the audio, you can click here, and then instead of source, which it will look like to begin with, then you can just hit audio. But if it's only an audio track, this is how it will show. So what we will do here is that we will scrub through and just select a part of the song, and I already listened through it, so I kind of know what we want to do with this one. But we'll just scrub through so we make sure that we are at the beginning of the song. And we are right here, and then I'll hit I to make an input. Now we only hit one frame forward, so it doesn't really make that big of a difference, but let's scrub through the song and make sure that we only get the part that we actually want. Okay, so it starts with that oh again. So this is actually where I just want to stop it. So I hit O for output, and now you can see that our line here is covering from the beginning to the end, input and output, and this is what we are going to get. If we now drag it into our timeline, this is what we get. So this icon here extends the zoom to show you the entire timeline of what you have. So if it's longer or if you got more in your timeline, it'll expand to show that. This one just shows your selection, where you are with the marker, and this one is for doing whatever you want. You can zoom in and out, so this is just your own preferred settings. So let's just zoom out to the entire timeline. And what I like to do, especially for reels, is to hit this loop icon, and now you can hear that when we play it through, it'll just loop, and then we can hear if we actually hit it like I want to for this one. And you can hear that we were actually a little bit off. So we don't want that last part, like so. And maybe we actually... Okay, so we want a little bit less here. A little bit less. Maybe we actually just need to get rid of that entirely. Close now. There we go. Okay, so that just plays through in a loop now, so that's what we can do with that. This is a really short clip, but what we want to do now is, before we import the clips, you can do that after you import the clips as well, I want to edit this to hit the different beats, so you can hear that there are 3 different times that it just or 4 times that it just hits like a beat. So that's what we want to edit to. And if you can't see the waveform down here, you can hit this menu up here and then you can toggle the different options. So this one shows or hides the audio waveform, and you can kind of scrub through if you want to see the full waveform, if you want to see it like how you want it to be. So I like to just have this setting on, and this one shows like the track height, so we can get a little bit more real estate if we want that. And the same thing goes for video. When we get it in, you can see that we have a small preview of the video as well. So let's just mark in where we want the cuts to be when we import our clips in a minute. And you can actually see from the waveform that we have one here. That's where it starts. Then we have one here. So we click M. That makes this little marker. It makes it easy to kind of like magnetize the clips when you cut them to that point. We have one over here as well. So we can click M. And we have one here in the end as well. We can click M. So now we have one in the beginning, one there, there, and there. And we don't need a marker here because that's where the clip starts. So we need 4 clips. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab our clips in here, and it doesn't really matter that much what we are using here. So I'm just gonna use 4 different clips that I have from this drone area. So I know kind of what I have already. So we're gonna use this one as well. I'm just dragging them in. You could use the media tab down here to find them and locate them inside of DaVinci and then drag them in, but this is how I enjoy doing it. Then we have this cool clip of the sunrise, and we also have this one. So I think, let's just see this one. How long is that? That's gonna be fine. So now we just have 4 kind of different clips. And what I want to do for these, now you can see they automatically resizes fit into this frame. So what we can do for these clips is that we can hit the inspector and then we can just drag and zoom into the clips. And I found that 32 or 3300, then we're sure that we have the entire clip with us. And then I'll just scrub through, and I kind of want to have some motion in it. So let's scrub through a little bit, hit I for input, and then scrub forward a little bit and hit O. And now when we drag this in, we will just get the entire clip. And I don't want it to be filling up all of this. So there's different ways that we can go to the marker and then cut it. The way that I'm just gonna mostly show you today is just go to the end of the clip and just drag it. And right now you can see nothing kind of magnetizes. That's because the magnet is off. So if we hit that and so it's highlighted and on, you can see that now it kind of like snaps to that point. So that's the marker that we made. And then we'll just go and do that for all of the clips. So let's zoom into 3300 there. And then I want this one. I want this kind of like this motion where it's going downwards. And we're gonna drag that in. And I think we're gonna make that the 3rd clip. So we're gonna put that in there. Then we're gonna put this clip, zoom that into 3300. I think I'm gonna position this a little bit to the left, just because it's a drone clip and we're not gonna use the full estate of it. I'm gonna position it a little bit to the left. We're gonna see where it flies, and I kind of like this part right here. So that's what we're gonna drag in. We're gonna drag it over, make sure that it only takes up the space that it needs, and then we're gonna hit the last one, double click it, zoom in a little bit to 3300, zoom, drag that over to the left a little bit, and just make sure that we have some, I think this one looked nice, this part. And that's gonna be a very short clip, so it's gonna go to the end, and we are just gonna cut it. And now you can actually see that if we zoom in over here, that the music doesn't align completely with our track. So you can try and extend it, but because the clip is going in frames, and that's what we were talking about before, so we have 29 frames, or 30 frames for every second. You can see I can only scrub through for 1 second or one less. So I think we're just gonna hit it here, and then we're gonna put our audio to that. Because the audio doesn't go in frames, you can extend that beyond, but you kind of need it to cut at that point. So let's just make sure that our music still looks nice, and then look at how our video plays through now. So I think that looks pretty nice. And I just hit Command S if you saw that quick thing on your screen. It also saves everything inside of DaVinci, which is really nice. So you don't really have to worry that much about that. So let's continue on. That's how you can cut it. There are some shortcuts to cut, and I'm gonna make another video on that. So for the ease of it today, you can just kind of like drag and drop the different clips onto your timeline. So now we got our edit, we got it edited to the beat, we got everything that we need here. Now we can head into the color tab, and we are gonna do a very easy and quick edit for this. One thing that might seem a little bit intimidating when you head into DaVinci for the first time is when you head into the color tab, you'll see these notes, whereas you might be used to working in layers in all sorts of different programs. DaVinci in the color grading tab works a little bit different with these notes, but it's actually, when you get to know it, it's much easier and much nicer to edit, at least in my opinion, than it is with layers. So it might seem a little bit confusing in the beginning, but just for the sake of it and for the ease of it, today we're just going to use them kind of like layers. So what you can do, like right now we just have one node. You can right click it and then say add node, and then add a serial node. That's just going to add another node after the first one. And you can also hit Option S and a similar command on Windows, and then do the same. And what I usually do is I have 4 different nodes, and I'll just start on this one. I'll usually do some color transformation and kind of stuff, which is way more complicated and advanced for this video, but I'll make sure to make videos on that and how I transform the footage, because this is actually shot in log. So it looks very gray and very boring right now. That's on purpose. Then you can bring back a lot of the colors if you've shot photos and shot in raw. It's kind of similar, not entirely raw, but it's getting there. So let's just do a very quick edit on this. We can see our waveform down here, and that's just showing us where the information lies. So it's kind of dark right now. So what we can do to begin with is that we can try and offset it a little bit to get it kind of more inside the middle point. And then I'll drag down the shadows and drag up the gain a little bit, and then drag down the gamma. And now you can see, if we hit Command D, you can see the before and after. So you can see that drastically changed it. To get some more contrast into it, I'm gonna get to the curves panel, which is over here. So, oh sorry, for the first part, this was the tab, the primaries color wheels that we were in. And that was the thing that did. So the left is for the shadows and the blacks. The gamma is for like the midtones and all the middle parts, and the gain is for the highlights and the whites. So that's kind of how it works inside of DaVinci. And you can also switch it to the log wheels, which is something that you've probably seen if you edit it in something else. But we are gonna keep it at that to keep it very brief and short and nice today. So we're gonna hit to our second node. You could do all the color grading in one node, but this kind of makes it easier to figure out what you've done, delete and go back and stuff like that. So this is a little bit easier. So we're just gonna make kind of like a normal S-curve on this to bring in some more contrast. You can see that that did a lot of contrast work in this one. And I think we're actually just gonna stick with this today for the sake of it, because I think now it looks kind of nice. I like the look of it. So I'm just gonna hit Command C, highlight everything, hit Command C, go into this one, hit Command, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? There we go. Okay, so I just hit the layer, Command C, went to the next one, Command V, Command V, Command V. And we can see that it doesn't really fit all of the clips, and that will be because of this one. So we can reset this node, which is where we did our initial grading here. And let's just drag that down a little bit, kind of drag this one down and this one down, this one up a little bit. So now I'm just adjusting for these, and of course this won't work for all of the clips because they were shot in different exposures, and it kind of also looks a little bit different from how it was shot in the beginning. I think we want it to be a little bit darker, so we're gonna go to this one and just like darken it just a little bit, just to make it look a little bit more like that other clip, even though this was shot a little bit later. So I think we're getting pretty close now. And then for the last one, we're gonna do the same, reset this node, and just make sure that we are around the areas that we want to be in. All right, like so. Normally I would spend much more time on this. I'm gonna make more videos on color grading, but for the sake of this, I think we're getting pretty close. So I'm just gonna head back here. Let's play through and see how it looks. All right, I think that's pretty good. So that was a quick walkthrough. You can do these quick color grading things. I would start with getting the exposure right, which you can do with these. You can also deal with the shadows and the highlights down here, or you can switch to the log wheels, play around with it, get to understand it, look for other videos on YouTube or my coming videos on this as well. And for the curves, you can do this as well. You can do this slide S curve, which will help you with your contrast in your image. And you have all the other ones. If you've used Premiere, you have all of these as well. So we're not going to go into exactly the colors now. We're just going to export it for our reel. So let's say that this was a reel that we wanted to save. We head to the Deliver tab, and actually I already have a custom preset for my reels. So that will give it a name. We will just give it our name. And we gave the project. We can browse for a location. So let's just save it inside of my Reels tab. And these are the settings that I use. So I use, because I have an iPhone and a Mac, I use QuickTime and I use H.265. That seems to work best. You can also use MP4 and H.264. Try and play around with it, figure out what works best, but these has definitely worked best for me in terms of having an iPhone and uploading to Instagram from that, if you're doing that. When I upload for YouTube, I actually just go to this YouTube setting and I hit the 4K one, because we can do 4K in like a normal landscape format in the free version of DaVinci. But we have the Reels one here, and then I restrict it to 45,000 kilobytes per second. That seems to be in the area of what works best for me in terms of quality. And that's it. So we're just gonna hit add to render queue. It's added over here, and we could say render all. It's gonna render, and depending on how good your computer are, it's gonna take longer or be faster. I can't speak anymore. We can reveal it in Finder, and we can see our final reel here. Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope it gave you a quick introduction to editing and kind of gave you an idea of how you can do it and put together something yourself. I'm gonna make a lot more videos and go in depth on DaVinci and how I edit, but I'm gonna try and make them short. So I hope this was short enough. And if there's anything you'd like to know in terms of editing, in terms of shooting, in terms of basically anything, let me know in the comment section below and I'll be happy to make a video for you on that. But until the next time, take care and enjoy.